New York's talk radio, 77 WABC, the most powerful radio station in America. This is War Room Pandemic, New York City's special report. It is Sunday, the 29th of March, the year of our Lord 2020, and this is a day that will live in history. The President of the United States, late in the afternoon, with the gloaming coming around, basically laid out he's going to lock down the United States of America for 30 days to fight an unseen enemy. That enemy, we've been told by Governor Cuomo, talking about a governor of New York many, many years ago, said the only thing we have to fear is fear itself. President Trump has said nothing is inevitable, that human action and human agency will get us through this. As the U.S. Navy's medical ship Comfort, with a 1,000-bed hospital, makes its route to New York Harbor, to more tomorrow on the West Side Piers, newly dredged, I might add, by the city of New York. The Army Corps of Engineers has turned over the Javits Center into a 1,000-bed field hospital, and now they're in Central Park, standing up field hospitals. The President of the United States, in a quite moving, I thought, press conference this afternoon, talked about the power of the images coming off of the New York Times story about the apocalyptic day at Elmhurst Hospital in Queens. To see that hospital that he had known so much as a young man, as a young boy, and to know the pressure going through the doctors and nurses and the staff there. He said they talked about the body bags and the refrigerated trucks out there, the portable morgues that just moved him. And I think you saw today not just the war leader, the wartime president, but someone that a sense of gravitas was even deeper as he talked about this move to really shut down the country for an additional 30 days. And he would come forward on Tuesday and talk about the modeling and the evidence base and the facts and what's in store with us. We've got a lot to get through. Remember, New York City is not only the greatest city in the greatest country in the world, the United States of America, but it's also the greatest city in the world. And it is a world city. That's one of the reasons we do the International Report on our morning show and the afternoon show. This pandemic is a global event, a global scourge, I might add, brought to us by the Chinese Communist Party. More on that later. I want to get to two things in this. Let's go back to, I want to take the 30 days to save America, kind of the concept that we've had here, and then I want to get back into Jack about how we're going to save it.
I think Americans can get behind a 30 days to save America plan. 30 days to save America. You go and do that, and you're going to see the patriotism in this country like you have never seen before. You're going to see the tough action, put the hammer down, 30 days to save America. People know that it's mentally, they're going to prepare for it. They're going to realize, you know what? We're going to hunker down here. We're going to be shut in for 30 days. We're going to live to tell our grandkids and our great-grandkids about this. We're going to do it. We have to take a dramatic national action like that to stop this thing, to not just stop this thing, to destroy this thing.
To defeat it.
That was Jason Miller last week on the War Room Pandemic show. And by the way, the clips all go out on the Twitter feed and YouTube at War Room Pandemic, at War Room 2020. And really, I mean, there's a lot of people over the last week or so who've been saying, okay, enough is enough. Let's get back to work. The president really stood up there in the Rose Garden today and said, hang on a minute. You know, we've seen very, very serious numbers. This isn't going to end tomorrow. This isn't going to end next week. Really, you're talking about a peak in a couple of weeks' time. And we're looking at the end of April here. All across the world, we're seeing the same trends.
I think this came about by Governor Cuomo and de Blasio. You know, Governor Cuomo talking about this, talking about peaking, Jack, in mid-April sometime, up to the 21st. Mayor de Blasio saying it may be later than that. The president talking about a quarantine, something we had talked about a full quarantine on New York City, right? The governor pushing back. We're going to get to that in a second. Governor actually bringing up the concept of civil war if that happens. So it was quite a testy thing. And so all of that, I think, plus the modeling is being done. The president is a numbers guy, I think. And you saw today when I'm sure we're going to get more details on Tuesday. This 2.2 million number versus the 100,000 and 200,000 that Fauci said. And like Fauci said, nothing's inevitable. If you start to crash this curve, you're not going to get there. But these are astronomical numbers of what the people are talking about. I want to pivot, though, back. We had a lot of criticism of the way Europe was handling this. And the president and they came together with Dr. Debbie Birx and Fauci came together a couple of weeks ago, I think with Peter Navarro and others, to talk about shutting down Europe. When the president, came and gave that Wednesday night speech from the Oval Office announcing, people were saying, why he's picking on Europe? Europe had become the new China. And it was coming right into New York City, right into JFK, obviously other airports, but coming right to New York City. And that's why he shut it down. At that time, France, Germany, and the United Kingdom were just doing the kind of the herd immunity. We're just going to let it go through, protect who we can. I think Germany at that time was probably the most. But they've pivoted. She's pivoted hard. She shut the borders. You clearly the financial pressure, what they're talking about. We just had the finance minister of Hesse killed himself, and he laid on a railroad track.
That's
I mean, this is very heart rending. And Germany's going to step up for a massive financial stimulus for the entire continent. They may have to end up bailing out the Italian banks, which I think the banking system in Italy is going to collapse at some point in the near future. But the Germans did something else. They're going to stand out in this, like South Korea stood out for the massive testing initially, and then Germany, Jack, did something on antibodies. What did they do that's so different that could have a huge impact for us?
Well, Germany's had a tremendous run testing period. They've been much better than almost any country in Europe and really outstanding. But now they're running into this issue with, and we've heard about it in a lot of places, that maybe as many as 80% of the people with the coronavirus may be asymptomatic or maybe recover without any real sickness, need to go to hospital or anything like that. So they're going to do these. They're going to start out with 100,000 people, and they're going to test them for antibodies, and they're going to do 100,000 probably over and over and over again, with the idea of being able to give the people a state certificate that shows that they have recovered from the virus or at least have the antibodies. All of this with the idea to go back to work. Now, what's interesting, in today's press conference, the admiral there, I think he's a Coast Guard admiral, squared away guy, he said that the United States is going to begin massive antibody testing as well. And it's a much simpler test. It doesn't require all the steps that you have to actually look for the virus itself. So it'll be very interesting, because we've said this all along. As testing goes up, we're going to find out that there are more and more people who have the coronavirus. Currently, we are only testing people who show symptoms and who are sick enough that they seek out help. So it'll be very, very interesting, because then we'll be able to have a prediction about the percentage of the population that has actually been exposed and maybe will be exposed.
The president actually mentioned again, too, I want you to get to the anti-malarial drug, particularly because of New Rochelle. And I think Governor Cuomo, this has got to be, although you see it trash talked on CNN and other places, it's clearly got to be part of the program in the tri-state area, and particularly in New York City. You can feel that. Let's talk about what's the latest out of New Rochelle.
Well, the doctor was interviewed again this weekend, and apparently he has treated 600 people.
Wow.
None of them have died. None of them have required real hospitalization. And also, I heard just on Friday that actually Mount Sinai is about to start a protocol for using the drug combination of the hydroxychloroquine and the azithromycin. So this is a developing story. But
is that the zinc? Is that the combo with
no,
the zinc?
No. The azithromycin is an antibiotic.
Right. Is also, I keep hearing that you do that also with zinc. Is that just,
well,
it's
some
just
of the early studies,
more anecdotal?
Early studies out of Korea, they were using zinc, and there's always been a lot of anecdotal study for years that zinc might be helpful in a viral condition. Whether or not that's true is, it's kind of like taking vitamin C when you have the sniffles.
What about France? Aren't they starting a bigger study in France right now? The guy that did the 26 individuals.
My understanding is that in southern France, this is the protocol that they have taken out in the Marseille area, and they have distributed to all the doctors down there. And the protocol is this: basically 600 milligrams of the hydroxychloroquine, coupled with essentially the Z-Pack, and he had great success. The last group he did was 80 people. Now an 89-year-old man died, and a 74-year-old woman is still in the hospital. But all other 78 were released, and now here's the real buried lead in that story. 57% of the patients in that 80-patient study had comorbidities like diabetes, breathing problems, heart issues,
and didn't lose
issues,
one.
and they only lost one. But he arrived pretty bad.
The last thing before we go to break here is that also you made a point. You've been all over the world. This is for anti-malaria. It's given out fairly frequently.
Yes, it is. It is. It's a standard drug, particularly in places like Africa, parts of Southeast Asia, Latin America, where malaria is still really an issue. And it has some uses for rheumatoid arthritis and some other autoimmune diseases because it sort of suppresses your immune response. And in some ways, this is a secondary theoretical benefit of the hydroxychloroquine because we talk about this cytotic storm that you get inside your lungs where your own immune system is overreacting, and that's sort of what kills you. Well, the chloroquine has a little bit of a suppressive effect on your immune system, and that might lower the reaction in the lungs.
Okay, hashtag War Room Pandemic. You're listening to Talk Radio 77 WABC. This is Stephen K. Bannon, Jack Maxey, Jason Miller, Raheem Kassam. War Room Pandemic, our New York City special report. It's Sunday, the 29th of March, the year of our Lord 2020. We're going to return in just a moment.
Epidemic is a demon, and we cannot let this demon hide.
Here's your host, Stephen K. Bannon.
New York's Talk Radio 77 WABC. This is War Room Pandemic, the New York City special report for New York City and the tri-state area. We cover the pandemic, the economic crisis, the financial crisis on top of that, the geopolitics of it all, particularly the Chinese Communist Party. And yes, oh, by the way, Saudi Arabia, our great allies, trying to destroy the U.S. fracking business. In the politics of it all. Jack Maxey, Jason Miller, Raheem Kassam, Stephen K. Bannon. I want to go to, we've had this discussion since we started the show, and one of the reasons we're so appreciative of the WABC team and family having us, onboarding us so that we do this, is that this is the heart of it. I mean, this is the heart of the economics, this is the heart of the global capital markets, but this is also the heart of the pandemic situation in the United States, and therefore driving the world. I have been an advocate that you need harder, and this is why I didn't understand Mayor de Blasio kind of late to the party, and even coming to the party didn't seem to be that, and I'm not trying, this is an observation, that maybe not as hard as I thought he would be in this city. Even Governor Cuomo, who kind of started out much tougher, eased up in the last couple of days, and I thought it was amazing that the president, in getting ready to go down to Norfolk, Virginia, my birthplace, Navy family, to see the USNS Comfort off, to come to his hometown, New York City, mention about the quarantines. Now, obviously, Jack and Raheem, that was because he had been seeing the footage on TV. He had seen Elmhurst. He had read the New York Times story about the apocalyptic day of 13 dead. He was starting to see this every day. And, he's a man of action. And he brought up the quarantine, and then the governor blew back. Let's play that, and then we can get some commentary.
Should anyone who lives in a state that has a governor that you're not getting along with well be concerned?
So I think really most of the governors are very appreciative. As I said, I just spoke with Andrew Cuomo. I just spoke with Ron DeSantis. We're thinking about certain things. Some people would like to see New York quarantined because it's a hot spot. New York, New Jersey, maybe one or two other places. Certain parts of Connecticut quarantined. I'm thinking about that right now. We might not have to do it, but there's a possibility that sometime today we'll do a quarantine, short-term, 2 weeks on New York, probably New Jersey, certain parts of Connecticut.
Restricting travel from those places.
Restrict travel because they're having problems down in Florida. A lot of New Yorkers going down. We don't want that.
Let's go. Oh, so that was a throwdown heading down to the Comfort on Saturday morning. I think it was at 2 o'clock. The ship got underway at 2. And you could tell that was because DeSantis is stopping traffic on I-95. The governor of Rhode Island's calling out the National Guard, putting an executive order, call out the National Guard to go visit folks in Newport, wherever, that are there from New York City, knock on the door and say, how long are you going to be here? And you're under 14-day quarantine. So, look, hopefully they've been listening to the show also, because we were advocating a quarantine, understanding it's very tough. But I was stunned by the governor's response.
Look, if the president was considering this, I guarantee he would have called me. I mean, we talk about relatively trivial matters when it comes to dealing with this situation. This is a civil war kind of this is a civil war kind of discussion.
So you don't believe he really is serious about it?
I don't believe that he could be serious, that any federal administration could be serious about physical lockdowns of states or parts of states across this country.
Listen, I think he threw that out as kind of a comment that he was just saying off the cuff, and I agree with Raheem.
Who the president did, or Cuomo?
The president did it originally, and I think that Cuomo's fighting back, which I find we were laughing about it before that we opened up. To think that a great Democratic governor of New York State, who is constantly seeking a spot at the trough, would now be talking about states' rights. I mean, this is kind of an interesting turn of events.
But it did strike me as strange that Governor Cuomo would basically say, no, there's not been any talk of this. There's got to have been talk about this, right? Even just in amongst the New York set they're running the show, they've got to have been thinking about this. They've got to have been thinking about imposing it from their own perspective.
Didn't he say there was no talk between he and the president?
Yeah.
Clearly, internally, they've had to look at the alternative of going to quarantine. Number one is they understand two problems. I still think global air traffic coming in. I'm a big advocate for this 30 days. Just lock it all down, right? So you've already cut off Europe and China. Let's just lock the rest down. Guys in Japan think will understand. You can do it by internet. Do your meetings by internet for 30 days. I'm a big advocate of that. But also, whether it's Puerto Rico, whether it's South Florida, there's other locations that guys in New York are flying to. People are going to. It's that. So I think that you clearly have had to have thought about it. I understand the logistics would be a nightmare, right? But at some time, so I believe that you're going to see in this 30-day program, particularly as you see the rise, and they're trying to cut down the top of the apex. I think you're going to see, my belief is tightening of the screws in New York City, that you're going to have to get to a more organized program of more than just social distancing.
I think they're going to try. De Blasio, I think, spoke about this last week, the idea of really shutting it all the way down. And I think that there are technical difficulties in a city like New York to really close it down. Who's going to check everybody's documents? Oh, you're a fireman, you're a garbage man, or what have you. But I do think that as this goes forward, and this is sort of the tradition of pandemics, the local citizens will see other people that they know get very, very sick. And they will begin to start taking this, seriously like they never have before.
New York City took a hit in the Spanish flu of 1918, in that fall of 1918, didn't they?
They did take a hit in 1918, and I'll post it on my Twitter feed and on the thing. It's a very interesting academic paper I just read. They took a different path then. The health system was actually really well prepared for these pandemics because they'd stopped the smallpox outbreak in the early part of the century, and they just completed a tuberculosis cleanup of the city. So they were kind of well prepared for it. Now, interestingly, they did not really shut down the city. What they did was change some statutes so that all the stores would be on staggered basis open. But they did lose 50,000 people.
Okay, this is hashtag War Room Pandemic. I want everybody to participate in the show. Talk Radio 77 WABC. It's Raheem Kassam, Jack Massey, Stephen K. Bannon. Jason Miller is going to join us at the bottom of the hour. He's going to give us an update on the world's response initially to President Trump's 30-day shutdown of America.
War Room Pandemic with Stephen K. Bannon.
The epidemic is a demon, and we cannot let this demon hide.
Here's your host, Stephen K. Bannon.
New York's Talk Radio 77 WABC. You're in the War Room, live from Fort Defiance, the old Breitbart Embassy right across the street from the Supreme Court, where they're not hearing oral arguments anymore. Also from a very quiet Capitol Hill, as the Congress, the House and the Senate split as soon as they voted last week. Looks like they're going to need phase 4 in the economic situation here, because they need another bridge. They're going to need a bridge to a bridge, because the President of the United States today in the Rose Garden said, We're going to limit down on 30. Of course, the mainstream media said the markets plunged. Markets didn't plunge. Markets futures down 187, I think 267 overall. It would have been down a lot more. President Trump, I think, taking action here. People need predictability. Now, we're going to talk. He's going to talk later. I think Governor Cuomo, Mayor de Blasio, President Trump over the next couple of days, when we talk about additional things, let's smash the curve. If we're going to do it, let's do it. Let's get this thing out of here. Let's not give it a host body to get to.
By the way, it's such manifest nonsense what CNN put up just now after that Rose Garden press conference that, you know, Dow futures plunge. Hang on a second. Let's take a step back from this. We're all in this together, right? This is no time for the media to be driving wedges and driving false narratives. You know, this is a very serious thing that a lot of jobs rest on, that a lot of people's savings rest on, that a lot of people's retirements rest on, and any semblance. I mean, this is unfortunately still a big news network, right? And them putting that thing out there,
it's ridiculous.
It instills fear, it instills panic. This is a time, as President Trump said again and again, that the nation must come together. And you've got the media types out there feeding false narratives out there. I couldn't believe it when I saw that.
No, look, I don't like taking cheap shots at him, but this one is just ridiculous. You've had these markets, and we're the only show that ties together the pandemic, the economic crisis it triggered with the financial crisis. We're following this financial crisis with the smartest guys on Wall Street. That ain't a plunge, okay? No. 200 points is nothing. That's a rounding error in today's thing.
If anything, given the context of all of this, it's an endorsement of what the president said in the Rose Garden. It could have been,
because, you know, Jack, you and I talked about it. It could have been down hard. Right?
Absolutely. I mean, as this thing sinks into people, you know, people are making decisions based upon it.
Do we have Jason? So you've had a while to kind of get a feel for the Twitterverse, but also how the media is responding to this. We've been able to pull some headlines. You know, it was our discussion about the 30 days to save America and others that came up. And the president clearly, you know, people criticize him. Oh, he's riffing. He's doing this. Obviously, he's all over the numbers. And you could see that between the images of Elmhurst Hospital, his beloved New York City, things he saw going on, even talking about having a quarantine, about New Yorkers, you know, calling out the National Guard, signing an executive order to call it the National Guard in Rhode Island, by the way, with a progressive Democratic governor, right? A kindred spirit to Ned Lamont in Connecticut and to Andrew Cuomo in New York.
Well, you're seeing all these governors sort of adopt a totalitarian streak here, it seems to me. I mean, you have the governor of Michigan and the governor of Nevada deciding what medications people are allowed to get. You have the governor of Florida locking down the border with Louisiana, or at least travelers coming from Louisiana. And you also have out on the eastern banks in North Carolina. Apparently they said, look, we've only got 10 beds out here. No one's coming. The bridges are up.
Hatteras at beautiful Cape Hatteras, they pulled the bridge up. So, Jason, are you with us? I want to get to what's the feedback that you've seen in the hours since President Trump made this dramatic announcement in the Rose Garden?
Yeah, so with the exception of CNN, that really is an island onto its own. I mean, just the outright triggered hatred that we've seen, just as Raheem pointed out a moment ago. Literally, they're watching a completely different reality. I don't even understand what they're doing. They really need to get some meds and get some help and just take a big, long relaxation here. Maybe a gin or tonic, to calm themselves down. I got to say the media is handling this pretty responsibly overall. Most of the foreign press is really seizing on the 100,000 to 200,000 number. And for the talk of shutting things down, I mean, I think that's important to go back to. The Dr. Fauci had put out these really stark statistics, these possibilities, and again, this isn't saying this is definitely going to happen, but it's what some of the modeling shows. A lot of the foreign press is keying on those possible fatality ranges. Domestically, your New York Times, the Wall Street Journal, the Washington Post are all focusing on the 30-day shutdown. And by the fact that these articles from these mainstream outlets are not beating up on the president, that tells you what you need to know. Almost all of them point out that he had hoped to have the nation reopened by Easter and that this might be a little bit of a backtrack. But the overall tone is pretty serious, and I think most journalists realize as a country how important it's going to be that we come together here. And I think they're going to give them the benefit of the doubt. I do think that it's important as we go in these next few days here, the images from New York, Elmhurst, and other places start ramping ramping up. We're also going to start seeing a lot more stories of people saying, how can I get through this next month? What's the emotional toll going to be like? What am I going to do with the kids? How are we going to survive through this? I do think it's important that the White House add this into their messaging, make this a patriotic push, consider some of these different factors, because, Steve, you're exactly right. I think there are going to be flight shutdowns. I think there will be other aspects of shutting things down because, again, this last 15 days, a bit of recommendations. I think they're going to go pretty hardcore from now till April 30th.
Yeah, if you're going to take it down, you got to do it. Raheem, I want to go to you. Two things have happened this weekend, and you're a student of this, and why this is important. When you're in the rest of the world, because we travel a lot, the way you see America is really through CNN. I mean, that's the TV station in the airports over there. That's the TV station in the hotels. That's the way that really most foreigners get to see, besides what they're seeing at The Guardian or The Times or the BBC, they really see it. The American channel that plays overseas is not Fox, it's CNN. Two things have happened this week, and they have jumped on the president, and the big thing was he backed down. That's the quarantine and and going to 30 days from Easter, not wanting to open up immediately, which he said he was going to try to open up pieces. Remember, it was counties, it was quadrants. He looked at different things. They jump immediately to he's backing down. What is that about?
Well, take your first point. In the Rose Garden today, he was asked, you were threatening to quarantine New York. Now, we played the clip earlier on the show. Does it sound like a threat to you? It sounded like a president being transparent and explaining his thought process to the nation, which I think is perfectly logical and perfectly fine for him to do. In fact, if he didn't do it and he hit them with a quarantine out of the blue, people say, oh, he's a dictator, he's taking tyrannical steps without even consulting anybody. He puts it out there for consideration. You bring in all of the experts at that point, you bring in all of the voices in the room, and for now, they've decided that it's not necessary. It's necessary to extend things, the social distancing measures. Maybe we'll see an expansion of that up to April 30th. He definitely didn't threaten anyone, and I think that's fake news number one. And the second thing is about the Easter thing. Okay, the president is trying to fill the country with hope, with morale, with something to look forward to, and with a target that we can aim for. Do you tell the country, hey, I don't really think we're going to get over this until December? Or do you say, hey, listen, this is the United States of America. Anything any other country in the world can do, we can do better. And that's what he's saying. He's saying, look, Easter would be wonderful. He said it's a beautiful time. It would be a great time to do it. That doesn't mean he's saying, hey, we're definitely doing it, and that anything else he says after that is a backtrack. It's simply not the case.
So, Jason, help me out here before I go to Jack. Bill Ackman, who is one of Obama's biggest supporters, he had that meltdown. Let's leave this fact aside. He may have shorted the market, but he had a huge meltdown, dramatic meltdown on CNBC a couple weeks ago. Says you got to shut it down. This will get you through. You got to do 30 days, wherever it takes. Bill Gates is on CNN last night with the exact same program that President Trump just came out with, almost to a T, right?
And not only that, Ezekiel Emanuel, Rob Emanuel, Ari Emanuel's brother, was saying 30 days as well.
That's the third guy I was going to get to. So to walk us through, why when the president comes out and essentially says, I've looked at modeling, I've seen this, and he didn't threaten quarantine, they understand quarantines be tough, but for government officials to say that means that they're trying to take measures to make things better. They're trying to take measures that will get us to, if you have to go through hell, you want to go through it as fast as possible. So he didn't threaten, but he's walking through, and people should say, hey, I don't want to go through a quarantine, but I understand if there had to be a quarantine, they're doing it for a reason to get through this. Now, you've had Ackman, you've had Gates, you've had Ezekiel Emanuel all say this. President Trump comes out, and CNN is still in a meltdown.
It's unbelievable, and I think this goes all the way back to, quite frankly, going back to the impeachment. I mean, let's keep in mind here, Nancy Pelosi went and got this thing out of the House on December 15th, or at least that's when they passed these two articles of impeachment. Pelosi then sat on these articles for a full month, keeping us then this whole national gridlock around impeachment. into February. And so the national media, CNN being chief number one, was following this whole impeachment witch hunt all through January, through the middle part of February, wasn't paying any attention to coronavirus. And now they want to pop up and try to act like President Trump wasn't doing enough. And then they want to flip it and make it seem like he's doing too much or that he's flip-flopped. And they just can't get it right. They're so deranged in their hatred for President Trump. And look, it's not just the media, it's Nancy Pelosi as well. I mean, Pelosi's already out there today threatening additional investigations and trying to say, is the president fiddles, people are dying. President Trump is talking about quarantining the city of New York or even the states of New York, Connecticut, and New Jersey. That is not fiddling. That's taken pretty dramatic action. I think when the president put in the travel ban with China, that wasn't fiddling. That was taking some pretty dramatic action. Nancy Pelosi was fiddling with impeachment and dragging things out for an entire month, not doing jack squat about the coronavirus. She needs to just be quiet.
Well, I also think that the president has been led around the block a few times with different recommendations, what have you, from his original team. But I think over the last couple of weeks, he has really squared it away. And the thing, I can't say it enough, he should rely solely on what his medical professionals are saying. And again, it's for two reasons, because he's not a medical professional, and then they own the outcome.
But not. He's got to make the decisions. Decision makers and policymakers have to make. They provide the data and the frame of reference for the decision you're going to make. They contextualize how you have to make. Because remember, it's just not numbers and math that make the decisions for you. You have to, evidence based, data based. That's where it goes. But then you make decisions, and sometimes it's a strategic decision that, hey, I want to do. That's why it's so important to me that de Blasio's team and Governor Cuomo's team get on the same page behind the scenes. Do we have Pelosi? I thought this thing today with Pelosi, who I consider a master political strategist, so it makes your heads blow up, was kind of a cheap shot.
I know your home district of San Francisco has been particularly hard hit. President Trump is considering relaxing federal guidelines for coronavirus for some of the less affected parts of the country. Do you think he should?
Well, first of all, let me just say how sad it is that even since the president's signing of the bill, the number of deaths reported has doubled from 1,000 to 2,000 in our country. This is such a very, very sad time for us. So we should be taking every precaution. What the president, his denial at the beginning was deadly. His delaying of getting equipment to where it continues, his delay in getting equipment to where it's needed is deadly. And now I think the best thing would be to do is to prevent more loss of life rather than open things up so that, because we just don't know. We have to have testing. That's what we said from the start before we can evaluate what the nature of it is in some of these other regions as well. I don't know what the purpose of that is. I don't know what the scientists are saying to him. I don't know what the scientists said to him. When did the president know about this? And what did he know? What did he know and when did he know it? That's for an after-action review. But as the president fiddles, people are dying.
Now, Jason, jump in here, guys, after Jason. Do you agree with Lindsey Graham when he said that's the worst statement he's heard from a serving politician in the 21st century?
Worst ever. And there's another point here, Steve. For as much as Nancy Pelosi has somehow managed to cobble together her Democratic coalition and twice be Speaker of the House, there's something that really came through in today's remarks, and that was the smallness in her ability to analyze this global pandemic. That she is so trapped in the small ball, I'm going to try to get Trump, I'm going to launch investigations, I'm going to try to attack him on this, I'm going to take issue with his science or his potentially opening things up. Nancy Pelosi is really a one-trick pony. And I'd always thought that Nancy Pelosi was a pretty smart thinker, able to look around corners, come up with tactics that can really jam up the other side. But it shows that she's basically just completely triggered in her hatred for President Trump and actually isn't that creative or a big thinker at all. She's just a partisan hack. I thought it was disgusting. I think she owes President Trump an apology here. And I think this shows why Democrats are really, as you'd say, Steve, in the mumble tank and don't know what to do on this. I mean, this is a time for big, bold leadership. It's exactly what President Trump is doing, and Nancy Pelosi just needs to be quiet.
By the way, you want to talk about fiddling? This is the woman who spent millions of dollars, airtime, months and months of the American public's time on an impeachment thing, just so she could come up with a strap line at the end of it, right? Impeach forever. That's what that was. And all of this was taking place under the radar in China at the same time. She has no right to talk about who's been fiddling.
The buried lead there is we're going to have an after-action report. I mean, she's basically saying there's going to be a full investigation of this. So, look, she's not looking to get through this. She's looking to hang up President Trump. Okay, we're going to take a short commercial break. When we return to wrap up the show, Maxie, Kassam, and Miller are going to give you their best thoughts on what to expect in the historic week ahead. 77 WABC.
WABC and WABCRadio.com.
77 WABC, the most powerful radio station in America. Jack Maxey, the week ahead, what should we look for?
Well, I think that you're going to see more and more cases of confirmed virus in New York State. I think it may go up dramatically because of the number of tests. Now, the positive thing when we see that is that you're going to see the mortality rate go down, right? And I think as we've seen in some other countries in Europe, particularly Germany, they are now believing that a significant number of people have been infected and recovered, and that may be true of New York, which would be a positive thing.
We got the antibodies then. Raheem.
Well, the UK is saying that patients dying today were infected a month ago. So, it depends on, how many people were infected 30 days ago. We do know there is some green shoots, right? Italy has seen the second consecutive day in decline in its death rate. It was 919 Friday, 889 Saturday, 756 Sunday. And, I know anecdotal, but a 101-year-old man has recovered from this in Italy. You've got to also look at other places now. Australia is expanding its social distancing policies. No more than 2 people should gather outside of people that you live with in the home. Things happening now, obviously, in Latin America, Mexico, Costa Rica saw...
Talk to me about Bolsonaro.
No,
he's going full macho.
I'm going to throw it to Jack on the Bolsonaro thing. 19 new cases in Costa Rica as well, and the first cases in Bolivia and Uruguay.
Well, Bolsonaro had some comments today that I'll share with the viewers, and I got to say, I mean, for whatever you want to think of him, the guy is muy macho. He said to a group of reporters and people who are listening, he said, the virus is here. We're going to have to confront it. Confront it like a man, not a boy. We're all going to die one day. President Bolsonaro of Brazil. Now, I think people want to make fun of him and say, he's doing the wrong thing.
That may be as a political epithet.
But, in a way, he is trying to be macho because let's get real. Brazil is never going to have enough ventilators. They don't have the ICU beds. So herd immunity is
the way
kind of
people
something
live
by default, right? Interestingly, though, I will say, and maybe this is a little bit of a plug against Bolsonaro, the drug gangs in Rio de Janeiro's famous favela have decided to enforce social distancing themselves with their guns.
So, Jason, what do you got for us this week? What should people look for?
So I think there's going to be a lot of adjusting to this new normal, and for as much as the attention tomorrow and even tonight will be on the 30 days of the nation continuing to be closed and the really tough weeks that are ahead of us, I think also there's a bit of a light at the end of the tunnel. People now know exactly how long that quote-unquote hell is going to last. It's going to be the month of April. As we talk about when life should hopefully start getting back to normal, we know it's probably not going to happen until June at the earliest. And I think it was important for President Trump to do that level set today so people can wrap their minds around how long this is going to go. Important benchmark coming up this week, however, is Friday with those small business loan applications. They want to have that program up and running by then from the Treasury and from the Small Business Administration. The one, voice that we haven't heard a heck of a lot on, prior to now, but I think you're going to hear a lot more of this week. First Lady Melania Trump, who I think will be a very calming voice and a real beacon of empathy in a troubling time for the nation. I expect to see a lot more from her.
We're going to need that because on Thursday is also the unemployment, the unemployment filings. I'm sure that's going to be a big number. Okay, hashtag War Room Pandemic. We really want to thank the WABC 77 WABC team for making this happen. This was a War Room Pandemic New York City special report, our Sunday evening show, 8 to 10. We're going to be back tomorrow at 10 a.m. to noon throughout the nation on all of our platforms, and then back on WABC at 5 o'clock.